Hello everyone. Today I want to introduce a new little feature that is in Adams now available. This feature is for people that are annotating images, whether it be polygons for object detection or image segmentation ones. This feature is about the integration of segment-anything to model within Adams, and much nicer way than it has been so far. So far Adams had support for Dexter, segment-anything 1 and 2. However, they needed to be started up through a separate flow running through one of our Docker images, which was not quite as nice an integration as you wanted to have, but it was a good way of having support for that. However, thanks to the guys at the Java library project, they made it really easy for integrating the segment-anything to model. And this is something that I've pulled into Adams over the last couple of days, and I'm going to show you how this works. So first of all, I'm going to show you object detection one. I'm going to start up the flow. Just going to annotate here some feature fruits which are currently coming into season again. So I'm going to switch over to the SAM2 model, and I just basically set one indicator point, press enter, and then let the model do its thing. When you first run this, you will notice a longer period before anything happens, because the way that the Java library integrates things, it downloads things on demand. So depending on whether you're on Windows or Linux, or with a CPU only, or with a GPU. So it downloads not only the models, but also all the relevant libraries that it needs to actually run this thing. So first time around, be a bit patient. People on a GPU will see things quite quickly. On CPU only machines, it will take a little bit longer. Anyway, so we've already seen annotation to appear. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And you can see that there are some of them that are quite small, which is not really what we want. So we'll undo that again. And we want to have the minimum object size of, let's say, at least 50. So we avoid little cruddy ones. And try that again. And now we basically only have one. And now we have a fruit here, and then we can move on to the next one and do that, and bam, and then the one in the background, and we'll see whether we can get that together. And now we have two even here. Yeah, so quite easy to do. One other thing which is quite handy, which I want to put here. So the polygons that can be returned can be quite detailed, and that may not be necessary. So you can put in a tolerance for simplifying the polygons. For instance, make that like 3 pixels or so. And then we'll run that again. And then we get sort of like a much coarser polygon. If we wanted to do, let's for instance 20 pixels, I'll do that again and try it again, and you can see you get sort of like only a few data points now. So that's a little bit sort of like for you to figure out which parameter is better. Usually few pixels will do, unless you have to annotate a lot of the objects and you want to keep the dataset size small. But usually compared to the images, the report files that you're generating is not really a lot. So a few pixels, like 2 or 3, are probably sufficient to get a nicely detailed polygon, which is not going overboard really. Okay, and as you can see, there is nothing for you to do, not a separate flow to start, not to watch whether the other flow is working, all these things. It just works. One thing that you can probably see if you have the command prompt open, you will see some downloads happening that's only for the first time round, and then whenever you see it in a session, it will load the model in for the first time you're running the object annotation. Cool. So that's basically for polygon annotations. You can also use it for image segmentation. I'm going to show that now, so I'm going to just load the same image here again. Same thing here, I switch over to the SAM2 one, and if I do that here again, you can see that it finds those little objects up there again, which we don't really want. So once again, we up the minimum object size and try that again, and then get a much nicer one. Here's another one, bam, here's one, bam. You could probably fix it up a little bit down here if you wanted to. Switch over to SAM again, and then that one. So we can nicely segment things and make our life a whole lot easier and quicker, so we don't actually have to annotate all these manually in a rather tedious way. So segment anything can really help. And just as a note, I'm running that as a CPU only model, and the small one, the tiny one, not the large one. So if you are on a GPU machine, the large one might produce sort of like nicer masks, but looking at what it's producing here is actually pretty good. So you really need to only sort of like fix up a few minor things here, because it's really astonishingly good at annotating these things. Yeah, and that's it. So feel free to give it a spin and let me know what you think. Thank you.